Hello, everybody. So, how to DEMI your business. This does not refer to Demi Moore or Demi Lovato, but if that helps you remember Demi, then go for it, right? One of the things that I feel real strongly about is that the most vital key to sustainable success in business here is systematic continuous improvement. And I think intuitively we all want to improve, right? We understand how important it is. And we do it usually in kind of what I will call an episodic way. We react, we get some kind of an idea offhand, and we decide we got to make some kind of an improvement. But if you really want to have a significant impact, a progressive impact on your business, it's got to be systematic. And we're going to talk more about what that looks like. You all heard that good is the enemy of great, right? From Jim Collins. I believe the great is the enemy of better. Because today's great idea is tomorrow's industry standard. If you want to stay ahead of the crowd, which is what it's all about, I tell all of my clients, you don't have to be perfect at this stuff, you just have to be better than the other guy. So you have to make sure that you're always thinking about being better than before. There are a lot of different tools that you can use for that. I've got probably half a dozen in my toolkit. This is one critically important one. It's continuous improvement through process management, and I use this acronym DEMI, D-E-M-I, for document, execute, monitor and maintain, and improve. There are lots of books and systems and tools and processes, and in fact, Bill, I think you talked about one called Work the System last time. It's a good book. There are lots of different ways to go about it. This is just one methodology, and I'm going to give you some specific tools to use as we get moving forward here. So, not sure you can read that, but the first thing is start with the as-is review. Look at your process as is. And here's a very simple, somewhat sophisticated tool that I use. It's called Post-it notes. And in this process that I'm going to show you an illustration of in a little bit, you have two colored Post-it notes. On one of them, you have the step description, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for the entire process. And then on the other color, you have what are the issues, the problems, the inconsistencies, friction points, potential improvements, whatever, that you list right underneath the particular step in the process. And here's an actual illustration of a client that I use. You can't read all of these things. It's not that critically important to be able to read them here for purposes of illustration. I want to make sure that I'm pushing the right thing here. Yeah, is it this thing right here? Whatever. You can get the idea, right?
It's the red button.
Oh, this one here?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. There you go. All right. So what you do is you start with the very first step in the process, and you go to the last step in the process, so you establish process boundaries, right? Now, every single little one of these is one itty-bitty, teeny-tiny step. Don't try and put a whole bunch of stuff in one step. If it takes you 5 seconds to execute, put it on a separate Post-it note. Now you see here they use blue notes underneath each one of those to identify one of those problems, issues, inconsistencies, friction points, whatever. These red things were kind of sidebar notes that they wanted to talk about details that were off from the process. Now the key thing about this, there's a number of key things. First of all, I'm sure that you've seen a lot of people when they get into problems with a particular process, there's a lot of finger pointing and blame going on, right? So what this allows you to do is to focus on the process instead of the people. Whenever people start getting into the issue about, well, it's Cynthia's fault, or it's Will's fault, or whatever, we come back to the process. What is the process step? The other thing about laying it out like this is on Post-it notes, you can move things around. You can spread them out. We forgot a step in the process. The important thing is to make sure that the people in the room are the people who live with the process. Don't have a bunch of managers, supervisors go out and try and lay out the process. Have the people who are involved in it lay it out. And one of the things that you'll find as you lay it out, by the time you get to the third or fourth step, everybody's got a different idea about what the process is, right? So this allows you to begin to create the foundation for the consistency that you want to have in your processes going forward. Now I'm going to have my runners pass something out here. I asked for some volunteers earlier. I hope I've got enough of these, because then the next step, you can't leave these post-it notes up forever, and you're not going to accomplish everything that you need to get finished in one session. So what you're going to do is transfer to the process improvement worksheet on this form that you see right there in front of you. Okay? And here's what it looks like. Basically, up here at the top, you have the process to be improved. What are you trying to do to improve it? The date, process category, process lead, employees that are involved. And as you can see, the things here on the first step is the step description, and then indented you have the issues that you need to look at. Okay? So I think Karen needs some back there. So then you transfer that, and then one of the other things that you'll see on the second page is that there's action items, because from this first session you're going to say, well, you know what, we got to check something out before we start making changes in that process. You assign it to somebody and you establish a due date for getting back together to review and do further adjustments in the process. That's what you do in this next step. So you return in subsequent rounds until it gets finalized. Usually I find that if you do this like 3 rounds, sometimes maybe an hour each, you can finally get to what I would call the new and improved To Be process. And you'll see a form in there as well. This is basically a process documentation form. Up here at the top you have the process name, the process description, the date that it was last reviewed, the category, and who's the process lead. Always have a process lead, because that's the person who's going to be responsible for making sure that the process is always on track going forward. So then you need to finalize and align with the affected people, make sure everybody knows what the new process is all about, execute the new process, that's the E of DEMI, and then you start monitoring. Check first after the first 30 days, because I guarantee there will be some things that haven't worked the way that you thought it was going to work. Systematically, regularly get back for that first 30 days and say, is this working the way that we intended for this thing to work going forward? Maintain it with periodic review to ensure that the process is on track, and then improve in 3 ways. This I is so critically important. Fix what's not working when the process fails, adjust when the new ideas emerge, and conduct an annual review on every single process. Make sure that you do that. I want to get on my soapbox a little bit about this improvement thing, because processes in many ways are habits or routines, right? And as Gretchen Rubin says in Better Than Before, habits are wonderful servants but terrible masters. Wonderful servants but terrible masters. If we had to rethink everything and redo everything and recalibrate our processes every day, we'd go crazy. But if you let it go forever, the process becomes the master instead of you. So make sure that you really think about systematic continuous improvement. If you really think about this phrase, I think about it all the time. It's probably one of those powerful things that I've ever read. And then lastly, create a process playbook. And you just start with a table of contents. Prioritize the processes to be documented first, and schedule and assign the remaining processes to be documented. Now, what I want you to do is look at the last page in the materials that you have. Front of the last page, this shows you an example of a process playbook. I actually have one here that one of my clients put together. It's a heating and cooling company, and they listed all of their processes right here on the first 2 pages. And then they have a tab for every single process that they've documented, every single one, to manage their entire business. The level of consistency and quality that they've created is accelerated dramatically. So what I want you all to do on the very, very back of that page is to begin, for just a couple of minutes, I want you to write down what you would consider to be the core processes that are most important for you to take a look at as is and improve. So I just want you to take a couple of minutes and write those down, and then these are the things that you're going to systematically go through and improve with your teams as soon as you get back home. So just make a list of them. And if you have a number of people on your team and you can think who would be the person on my team that will be the lead on that process, they're going to be the ones who hold the bucket for that process. They're the ones that people go to when there's some kind of a breakdown in the process. Okay, you can continue to work on those. I'd like to get some volunteers who'll be willing to say what processes do you need to work on, or you're going to have your teams work on sometime soon. Anybody want to share? Nobody? Karen?
Read them off.
Yes, please.
New membership sales process, new member orientation, new member processing.
Very good. So who's going to be involved in that conversation with you?
Michelle and Heidi Maxwell.
Terrific. Very good. All right, who else? Yeah, John.
First, I'd like to say, I know this process works.
I know. This is, by the way, this is a process engineer. This is the guy that does the Six Sigma, the Lean. This guy knows his shit about this stuff, let me tell you.
Now I feel no pressure. So I'm in the starting of my business, and so first off, my priority is prospecting and then creating an operating system to execute my delivery process for the various workshops, and then creating standardization around my material development.
Very good. Who's going to be involved in that with you, John? You're just going to do it on your own? I know you don't have a big team yet.
Yeah, it's going to be me, and then as I go, I'll reach out to my mastermind network.
Great.
for help.
Oh, terrific idea. Okay. All right, anybody else? Yeah, Bill.
So there's someone in the audience. So Caesar Keller, could you stand up for a minute? Because Caesar and I are working on a process together. So he and I developed a 6-point action plan
Okay.
that we're implementing in a client. So we're going to unbundle those 6 points, and then we'll be delegating to 6 different people how they're going to work with them in the client company, and they'll be developing their marketing plan for 2020.
That's great. So
that's
you're going to have those 6 people involved in laying out
Exactly.
the details
There'll
of
be
the
a lead, and
process.
then Caesar will manage the
Perfect.
overall team.
Outstanding. That's great. So, yeah, one more? Yep, one more, I do. Thank you. And then we'll wrap it up here.
I didn't want to say anything because to admit that I have to improve things means that I must not be doing some stuff right. So,
It means you're human.
yeah, this was really hard. My things are outreach or marketing, onboarding, which I hate, constant communication. I'm instituting a director of surprise and delight, and interprofessional collaboration.
Terrific. When you guys do this, if you can see in the example that's on the front of that page that you've been writing on, it'll show you how to break down the process into smaller steps. Don't try and gobble a whole big process all at once. Just take segments of the process and work on it a bit at a time. So, last thing I want to share with you is, this is kind of an exercise. I put 3 minutes and 2 minutes because I was thinking maybe we would try and do it here, but there wasn't enough time. But this is really fun. With your teams, you want to kind of get them in the mindset of doing this kind of stuff. I say, 1 color post note, write down step by step your process for getting up and getting to work in the morning, right? Lay all of those steps out. And then on your 2nd color post note, what's not working here with getting up and getting to work in the morning? I used to do this mostly for fun to get people warmed up, and I have to tell you, this one woman, after I came back a month or so later, who was in this workshop that I've been doing, she said, "You changed my life." I said, "What the hell are you talking about?" She says, "I got 4 kids at home, 8 to 18, and getting up and getting to work in the morning, getting out was chaos. I literally got all of them involved. We did the Post-it note process, and my life is transformed. So even something as simple as this can really make a big difference in your life. And if you apply these principles and practices in the work that you do, I guarantee it'll make a big difference in yours. All right, thank you.